We gather here and now, bringing our whole selves with us. We bring our joys and sorrows, dreams and doubts, hopes and fears. We bring our questions, particularly the big questions that have no easy answers. And we gather in community, where we can explore these questions together. We gather in the mystery, in one strong body, in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
Gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. My name is Lee Moranto. My pronouns are he and him, and I am your worship associate for this week. This is a welcoming congregation, and we are always working on how we can better welcome and care for one another. If this is your first time here, we're so glad that you've come. And whoever you are, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. Today is the third in a 5-service series exploring the big questions of our existence. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Today, we look at some big questions of being a human and how we live with questions that we cannot answer. How we live in the mystery. As we begin, we take this moment to acknowledge this church occupies unceded Chochenyo and Muwekma Ohlone land. As community and church members, we continue to benefit from the seizure and occupation of this land. We also want to affirm that this is not simply performative, but is deeply felt and is a commitment toward action. For more information, please visit uucb.org/indigenous. This service, we welcome back to the pulpit the Reverend Sue Magidson. Sue is a longtime member of this congregation and is one of our affiliated community ministers, which means that most of her ministry happens in the community, and she has a formal relationship with this congregation. Sue serves as a hospital chaplain, which you'll hear more about during her reflection. Please take a moment to prepare yourself and your space for our time together. You might bring a candle and a way to light it so that you can join in the chalice lighting at home. Now, let us kindle our flames with the words of Julianne Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and a welcoming of multiple truths. Now please join us in singing our opening song, number 128, For All That Is Our Life. The words will be on the screen.
For all that is our life, a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fear for hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise, for all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Please join me in saying our covenant. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another.
When I was a child each week, on Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest, and he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread. Everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad that miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips, but now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. There used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face and say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come and say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird. shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Catherine Boyle, and this is the time for all ages. My pronouns are she, hers, hers, and before we begin, I'd like to remind my friends that we have RE today at 12:15. If you need access, please send an email to me at family.ministry@uucb.org for access. With that, let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a family of a mother and 4 children with a beloved grandmother they called Grammy. Every July, they would go to Grammy's house on the beach for the month. She'd kick it off with a big barbecue party, and Rachel and her siblings would spend every day of that month at the beach, playing, swimming, and building sandcastles. And when the sun began to set on those summer days, they would dry off and race Grandma up to the house. Somehow they always won, and enjoy strawberry shortcake together. That was Grammy's favorite. This happened every summer for 8 years, until sadly, one day, Grandma died. For the first time ever, Rachel and her siblings did not go to Grandma's house that July. Instead, they ate a barbecue meal outside in their own backyard, where there was no beach, and there were no races up to the house, and there was no Grandma. "I miss Grandma," Rachel said to Jack, her little brother, next to her at the dinner table. "I miss her too," Jack said. "Where did she go when she died? I wish we could see her still." "Why, she's up in heaven, Rach. She's an angel right now, looking down upon all of us and smiling," Jack said. He was smiling too. But Rachel was not, because when she looked up into the clouds, she did not see Grandma watching down. She decided she needed to ask someone older, so she turned to her sibling, Martina. "Where did Grandma go after she died?" "Why, she's with Grandpa, Rachel," said Martina. "But, Martina, Grandpa is gone too." "Yes, they are both on the other side together now. You do not remember Grandpa, Rachel. He died before you were born, but you'll meet him too when you pass on." But Rachel didn't want to wait that long to meet Grammy or Grandpa. It would be forever and a day until she was that old. Her heart felt heavy as a stone. That is an awful long time to wait to see them. "Maybe not," said her older brother Ian. "Grandma may have been reincarnated. She may be right here on this planet right now." "What?" Rachel said. "Reincarnation. When you die, you are reborn as someone or something else. Grandma could be alive right now in another body, with a new life, maybe as another species. She could be anywhere." "My teacher at school says nothing happens when we die," Martina added. "You just fade to black. Or maybe you go into another universe," Ian said. Rachel's mind whirled at all these possibilities. Does anybody know where Grandma went? "Rachel," her mother said, taking her hand in her own. "We don't know where Grandma went. No one does, though some folks think they do. This is one of the great mysteries of being human." "Mystery? Like my detective book?" asked Jack. "This is a different sort of mystery," their mother replied. "This is a question we can't ever answer for sure. As you all just discussed, there are many
different explanations for where Grandma is. It is hard not to know we love her so, so much and miss her so much. But we can miss her together. We can tell stories about her and look at photos and eat her favorite food like strawberry shortcake and go to the beach on her birthday. We keep her alive in our hearts. As to what happens after we die, that's a mystery we'll all have to live with. Rachel was quiet for a moment and then nodded. I think I'll have a slice of strawberry shortcake then, to remember Grandma. And when she took a bite, it tasted sweet, but not as sweet as Grandma's hug. But it was a good reminder of them. Blessed be.
Where do we come from? Where are we going? Who are we? The mysteries and riddles of life surround us and stretch into the far reaches of our imaginations. For today's visual meditation, we bask in the beauty of everyday beginnings and endings, sunrises and sunsets, those moments where the sun slips behind the horizon or heralds the beginning of a new day. Moments often surrounded by a blaze of color that shifts almost imperceptibly as we watch. I invite you to gaze deeply at some of these moments, drinking in the beauty and wonder and awe. We now enter the time in our service that we make for our hearts and our spirits, for our cares and concerns for one another. We lift up and hold the joys and sorrows and cares and concerns and challenges that we may each be facing. During our time of silence this morning, I invite you to share any joys or concerns or significant milestones of your own in the comments. I invite us all to hold these cares in the compassionate embrace of this loving community.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where
Like many of us, I have struggled with the uncertainty of the past year, and we still have a lot of uncertainty in the months to come. Depending on your stage of life and whatever socioeconomic barriers you might face, the challenges of the past year have been pretty difficult to overcome. I find myself slipping from being vigilant and cautious to just being done and ready to toss my mask into the trash and return to normal as if all the risk has suddenly disappeared just as quickly as it appeared. It's a bit like the time I ran a half marathon. We ran a beautiful route that started at Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco and went along the Embarcadero towards the Golden Gate Bridge. We started before dawn and ran in the dark. Just as the sun was rising, we were running across the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was stunning. It was such a beautiful sight that I never would have been able to enjoy otherwise. And I took it in. But that was mile 8. I still had to do another 5.5 miles. The next 4 miles were challenging, but I stuck with it without very much grumbling. The last 1.5 miles, however, was hell for me. We had entered Golden Gate Park in an area I was not very familiar with, and there were many twists and turns. I could not see the finish line. I had no idea how much more I needed to give to get to the finish line. Talk about a mystery. Not knowing was just too much for me. I fell apart emotionally. I wanted to stop and rest so badly, but I had just completed 12 miles of my first half marathon, and I couldn't bear quitting now. Not having that finish line in view was one of the most difficult things I had ever encountered until the pandemic. It almost broke me. I would have stopped if it were not for my best friend. He and I were running side by side, and he didn't say much during this time, but he did listen to my anguished babbling and some cursing. He just kept running, so I kept running with him. And having that steady, supportive presence made all the difference. Most of all, he didn't let me stop. We kept going together, and we made it to the finish line, and I completed my first half marathon. Lately, I've been reflecting on how best to manage the uncertainty of our present times, which feels like the out-of-view finish line of my half marathon. We've come so far, and we're nearly through this marathon that we did not sign up for. How do we process the tidal waves of change that have battered us? How can we escape the COVID riptide that pulled us right down into an abyss so suddenly? They say that when you're in a riptide, it's best to swim sideways. But what if we float? For those of us struggling with the uncertainty of today, our choices are to swim sideways or we can float. I've been working on floating, letting the current take me where it will. They teach you to float if you ever find yourself out to sea without any help in sight. You're supposed to float so that you don't exhaust yourself swimming to some distant object, especially if you cannot see it. Floating takes little to no energy and can be sustained for hours or days. By floating, you can go wherever the current takes you, rather than exhaust yourself trying to swim in any one direction, especially against the current, which might be futile. When I visualize doing this in my mind, I find that there's a great deal of freedom and less suffering when I choose to float. It's a little scary to let go and drift with the currents, but it's also easy and uncomplicated. I can't control the ocean, but I can control whether I float or swim to exhaustion. Even though we can't quite see the finish line, we are close. There are still some twists and turns that are the mysteries that lie ahead, just like that path in Golden Gate Park. But we are running in this together, so let's keep going to the end. Let's stay vigilant, let's stay on track, and together we'll float right over that finish line.
I have one of those jobs where what I do and what people think I do don't always match up. As many of you know, I'm a hospital chaplain, And some people think chaplain means priest. Some see my job as saving souls and bringing people to Christ. And some people think that you call the chaplain if you want a prayer, which is true, but just a small part of my job. So what do I do? Well, I meet people where they are in whatever they do or don't believe, and I offer them emotional, spiritual, and/or religious support. I'm there for everyone at the hospital, patients, their loved ones, and staff, because it's hard to be a patient in the hospital, and it's hard to have someone you love in the hospital, and sometimes it's hard to work in a hospital. So that's the big picture, and since that's still a bit vague, early in my chaplaincy, I made a crib sheet for the staff to give them an idea of when to call the chaplain. I said, call me when big emotions are surfacing: sadness, anger, fear, loneliness, grief. Call me for new diagnoses, when folks are struggling to make hard decisions, if someone is dying or has died. And call me if someone is asking big questions. Now, in the hospital, people are not usually asking, where did I come from? Where am I going? They aren't so concerned with where they came from, and they usually think they know where they're going, though some worry that previous behavior may result in their not going where they want to go. Instead, in the hospital, the big questions are more often, why? Why me? Why now? Am I being punished? Did I do something wrong? In the hospital, these are not idle, speculative questions. These are urgent, fearful questions. My job is not to answer these questions, not to persuade anyone of what they do or don't believe, what is or isn't true. My job is to be with people in the questions, in the emotion, in the mystery, in their belief system. I listen, mirror back what I've heard, sometimes ask a question, but above all, I companion people in the uncomfortable, fearful place of not knowing. The other big questions that come up in the hospital are, am I going to survive this? How much time do I have? Doctors try so hard to answer these questions. And more often than not, the truthful answer is, we don't know. With all of Western medicine, mystery remains. And birth and death are two of the greatest mysteries of all, not only in what comes before or after, not only in the breathtaking moments of transition into and out of this world, but also in their timing, which is almost always a mystery. How many babies are actually born on their due date? And the other side of things, which I witness daily, how many people actually die exactly when the doctors think they will? Very few. We've seen people outlive their prognoses by months or years, or die sooner than the doctors predicted. Even when hospital staff remove a breathing machine so someone can die naturally, doctors have a hard time predicting whether that person will breathe on their own for a few minutes, or hours, or even days. They just don't know. I find something beautiful in this. that with all their years of training and experience, with all the science behind their work, there are some things that are beyond human knowing, that are part of the mystery. Wise doctors admit this. Some acknowledge their humanness and limitations by saying to families, "I'm not God." There is science and there is mystery, both. And then sometimes there's the excruciating question of when to remove a breathing machine. Sometimes doctors turn to me for help when they're convinced that further treatment is futile, maybe even contributing to additional suffering, while the family is holding out for a miracle, believing that God can heal at any time. The doctors want me to persuade the family to let go. But that's not my job. My job is to support the family in their beliefs and the medical staff in their distress. The holding out for a miracle stance has gotten harder for me over the years. I'm a lifelong UU, raised to revere science, but I've worked in hospitals long enough to witness occasional medical miracles. Miraculous recoveries when doctors were confident that no recovery was possible. And COVID has only exacerbated this disease so new and complicated that it's hard to know what to expect. I'll never forget a case in the first few months of the pandemic where the patient had been on a breathing machine for over a month. The doctor was convinced that further treatment was futile, and I was in the room when he told the family that the patient had a 1 in 500 chance of survival. To the doctor's dismay, the family made the decision to hang on to that 0.2% chance. And 1 month later, I watched this patient walk out of our acute rehab unit, still very weak, using a walker, but alive and breathing, talking, eating. We were all amazed. Now, COVID has not only been a mystery to the doctors, we're all swimming in currents we've never experienced before, learning how to keep our bodies safe while tending to our hearts and spirits, learning how to adjust to too much alone time, or too much together time, or too much together time with some and not enough with others. Right now, we're swimming in the mystery of, is it over yet? What next? When will it change? How will I make it through? What will the future be like? How do we live with all this mystery? As humans, we want to know, to plan, and instead we get mystery. And just to be clear, this mystery isn't only around birth and death and COVID, it's everywhere. All that we can't control or predict or even understand. We humans craft lives with the illusion of control and predictability, while knowing that the universe will laugh at us again and again. Sometimes we may even laugh at ourselves. So what do we do? Well, there's a reason religions exist, to provide frameworks, practices, belief systems for living with all this mystery. Many of the people I serve at the hospital bring religious beliefs with them. It's God's will. The Lord has always taken care of me. When I die, I'll be reunited with my loved ones. In the hospital setting, these beliefs often provide comfort and peace in times of not knowing. Faith supersedes fear. Unitarian Universalism is a bit different. It doesn't offer answers to the big questions. That's not our way. Individually, we have a wide range of beliefs, and those beliefs grow and change over time. As a group, we UUs tend to focus less on where we've come from and where we're going, and more on what happens in between during our lives here on Earth, where there's still plenty of mystery to go around. And many religions offer practices that provide structures to cling to in hard times. Meditation, prayer, ritual, scripture reading, instructions on how to live a good life. UUs don't have communal practices either. Individually, many of us have found spiritual practices that provide grounding, comfort, insight. Sometimes it takes experimenting with a variety of practices to find what works for each of us, knowing that this too may change over time. So, we UUs don't have common belief systems and we don't have common spiritual practices. What do we have? We have each other. We have a community where we can bring our questions and doubts, where it's okay not to know the answers, where it's okay for those answers or non-answers to change. We explore the mystery together in worship services and chalice circles and personal theology, to name a few. Beyond belief, we support one another in living our values and becoming our best selves. And in times of trouble, we care for one another. So that's an overarching answer as to how UUs live with all this mystery. I also wanted to respond to the question more personally, to share some of what helps me swim in the mystery, at least at this point in my life. For one, it helps me to name it. Sometimes the illusion of control can be comforting, can help us feel as though we have some agency. And we do. But at times when life seems to be coming apart at the seams, it can be helpful to remember that we're not responsible for it all, that much is beyond our control. It's the Serenity Prayer, words of Reinhold Niebuhr, adapted by 12-step programs and beloved by many. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Isn't that the crux of life? Distinguishing between what is ours to do and what is beyond our control. It also helps me to remember that there's more to life than meets the eye, that there's a bigger picture than I can ever see or know. I've learned that my own assessment of a situation is limited, that what appears to me a gift may have unwanted challenges, and what appears to be a disaster may hold blessings I can't begin to imagine. If I can summon a holy curiosity and some humility, I can hold things a little more lightly. And finally, in my work as a hospital chaplain, I've learned to practice surrender. I have a job where I swim in mystery all day long, whether it's around life and death or simply triaging who to see next when there's not enough of me to go around, which is most of the time. Part of my daily prayer as I drive to the hospital is, please guide me, because I confess I don't really know what I'm doing. I say this in all humility. Yes, I come with years of seminary, training, and experience. And I step into the unknown again and again, never knowing what I'll find. Sometimes it feels like I'm being guided. I talk to the random visitor in the elevator and learn that their loved one could really use some spiritual care. Or I wander into a room by mistake and the patient tells me they were hoping to see the chaplain. Other times it feels like a series of near misses. The patient I plan to see is in the bathroom, sleeping soundly, with a staff member out for a test. The family member I really need to talk to doesn't answer the phone. And then when I finally manage to see a patient after 3 frustrating days of near misses, they tell me I came exactly when they needed me. Go figure. Whatever you call it, as you swim in it or flail in it or float a while, may you remember that you are not in this mystery alone, that we are all swimming together and we need one another. Please remember that you don't need to be a chaplain to companion someone else in their big, unanswerable, heart-wrenching questions. The important part is being with them, entering their worldview, listening, not judging or debating or explaining away, offering loving attention, perhaps asking an occasional question, and listening some more. Sometimes the best gift we can give one another is our companionship. Where do we come from? Where are we going? What do you think? Your answer is as good as mine. In closing, may we hold the big questions lightly as we learn to live with all that we will never know. May we turn to curiosity and wonder as we each search for framings that help us to live with the not knowing. And may we remember the most important part. We are not alone. We have each other as we swim together in the mystery. Amen.
We're all living beneath the great big dipper. We're all washed by the very same rain. We're all swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone, I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection can be my crime. In humility I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. We're all living beneath a great big dipper. We're all washed by the very same rain. We're all swimming through the stream together, some in power, some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever, we're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, binding tuition my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together, I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who came before me band together to be my guide, loving lessons that I will follow, we're all swimming to the other side. We're all living neath a great big dipper, we're all washed by the very same rain. We're all swimming through the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever, we're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance on the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together, we're all swimming to the other side. We're all living neath the great big dipper, we're all washed by the very same rain. We're all swimming in the stream together, some in power, some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever, we're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits will live forever, we're all swimming to the other side.
We take time now to remember that UUCB needs our gifts and support to realize our shared visions for loving community, spiritual growth, and social justice. We invite you to make an offering. Each week, half our offerings are shared with a good neighbor organization who needs our financial support. And we hope you will continue to practice generosity with them during these difficult times. This month, our good neighbor is the Bay Area Outreach and Recreation Program, or BORP. BORP works to improve the health, independence, and social integration of people with physical disabilities through sports, fitness, and recreation programs. At BORP, we believe that sports and recreation provide a path to greater achievement to which all people should have access, and we continually strive to make this a reality. More information about BORP will be available during next week's service. Offerings of any value are received with gratitude. More details on how to give electronically will appear on your screen as our offertory begins. Thank you.
Your hands lie open in the long, fresh grass. The finger points look through like rosy blooms. Your eyes smile peace. The pasture gleams and glooms 'neath billowing skies that scatter and amass. All round our nest, far as the eye can pass, are golden fields with silver edge, where the cow parsley skirts the hawthorn hedge. 'Tis visible silence, still as the hourglass. Deep in the sun-searched growths, the dragonfly hangs like a blue thread loosened from the sky. So this winged hour is dropped to us from above. Oh, clasp we to our hearts for deathless hour, this close companion inarticulate hour, when twofold silence was the song, of love.
Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage the lives of integrity, joy, and service. It's always so good to be together in praise and song. Before we shift to our virtual coffee hour on Zoom, I'd like to encourage you and remind you to stay informed about and involved in all that's going on in our congregation by exploring our website at uucb.org. Among other things, you can find a link in news to the week ahead, our weekly email newsletter, which contains information about upcoming activities. As we prepare to leave worship service, here are a couple of important announcements. All congregants are invited to join and participate in the UUCB Congressional Anti-Racism Assessment Zoom meeting. Now that's a mouthful. It'll be time to take a deep dive into various aspects of UUCB's organizational patterns from a specifically anti-racist and countering white supremacy cultural lens. It's also been envisioned to be complementary to the work of the Widening the Circle of Concern Task Force and their work, with the hopes of informing their recommendations to the board and congregation. More information is available at uucb.org under the News tab. Please check out the week ahead or the events section of the website to learn about all the events taking place this week. We have a couple of Zoom chalice circles taking place, which might be of interest to some of you in the congregation. On April 15th at 1 p.m., you can join a Zoom chalice circle with Lenore and Lorraine on loss and resilience. Or you can join the Zoom Chalice Circle on bereavement taking place on April 16th at 10 a.m. Both events are virtual gatherings.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow, we have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the ways of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll find all we seek. Even to question truly is an answer.
Even to question truly is an answer. As we swim in the mystery, living with big questions that we may not be able to answer, may we remember that we have one another on Zoom and Facebook and YouTube, by text and email and phone, and eventually in person. May we believe in life and the strength of love. May we companion each other as we grapple with whatever life sends our way. And may we remember that we are all in this together. Blessed be, and amen.